What is the good Rizzo mean? Has big man, your boy, finally gotten some information about Suge Knight's life behind bars? He believed that Suge kept 100% and maintained the same attitude when running around the streets. Prepare yourself to be surprised. We were surprised to learn that Suge had changed and was even afraid to leave his cell. Here's what's up. You all know who Big Bad Suge Knight is. He was a prominent record label owner in the 1990s. Despite being sentenced to almost 30 years, he was well known for his notoriety. Knight previously managed several hip-hop artists, including Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. He also worked with Tupac Shakur, who died in 1996. Suge Knight was sentenced to 28 years in prison for pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter in 2015. After pledging no contest, the former CEO of Death Row Records, Knight was charged as a murderer for running over two men in a parking lot of a restaurant in Los Angeles. Surveillance video captured the incident near the NWA film set straight out of Compton. The prosecution claimed Knight ran over the man with his pickup truck after following two men into a nearby restaurant. Many comments have been posted online about this horrific incident and how Suge Knight took the innocent life of a man. This should have happened at this era. Imagine the foul he committed when Death Row was in its prime. Terry Carter died from his injuries while Clee Sloan suffered injuries to the head and feet. Knight fled the scene before the authorities arrived. Suge chose a plea agreement despite the potential of life in prison. He did this just days before his trial. According to a report, Suge Knight was also charged with second-degree robbery in 2014 for allegedly stealing a paparazzo's camera with comedian Cat. He was also indicted for threatening the director of Straight Outta Compton, F. Gary Gray, with death or bodily injury last year. This was not Suge's first encounter with the law. Suge was sentenced to 9 years in 1997 when he violated his probation on an assault charge. He was released early in 2001 but was sent to jail again in 2003 after assaulting someone trying to park. He's likely to spend the rest of his days in prison this time as he comes to terms with the reality that he has a powerful impact on others and himself. What is Suge's prison life like? As you can imagine, the last few years have been tough for Suge Knight, who has much to overcome. He is located in the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, which is located in San Diego County. This prison is part of the California state system and has a range of security levels, from medium to high. Suge Knight, who is currently in jail at RJDCF, is not the only notorious inmate. Sarah and Saren was convicted in 1996 of killing their parents, and Lyle and Eric Mendez, brothers, convicted in 1968 for assassinating Senator Robert F. Kennedy. John Getro is a suspected member of an international serial. Tex Watson is a member. Suge Knight's sentence was based on the Charles Manson family of 2015, which was too short. He reflected on these times in an exclusive interview with DJ Black. It put me right next to Suge in a little tiny cubbyhole. Wow, then nobody saw the Sugar lot because he was locked up. It was 2015. When did he enter? You can check 2015. We had a visit. I was there for 5 weeks. I saw him about 3 or 4 times during the visit, and we chatted well. It was cool. Suge Knight's first major challenge came in 2016 when he had to undergo emergency surgery for his appendix due to severe pain. Suge Knight endured weeks before he was unable to stand. Suge Knight clarified his outside-of-prison connections in 2019. Suge Knight identified 3 individuals as the prominent people responsible for his projects. Before Snoop Dogg bought it, he designated Ray J to manage his business dealings to Death Row. His finance controls media rights such as film and TV releases about Knight. Nick Cannon, a TV host, is working on a biography of his life, but that's just the beginning. In March of 2020, the judge will approve a $1 million and $700,000 judgment against it. Lydia Harris, a former business partner to Suge Knight, filed a lawsuit against Knight and Death Row Records. It turns out that the boys allegedly held back profits from labels in the past. Lydia claims she co-founded Death Row Records and contributed $1.5 million to the label's startup costs. Suge and other partners then forced her out. Now she wants to reclaim what is hers. She wants more than $100 million. Suge's problems are causing damage, and they have a 50% stake in the label. This is not a surprise at this point. It's unsurprising that Suge isn't interested in the world. Rumors say that Suge Knight changed drastically in prison. He's changed so much that he doesn't even claim by prison rule. even though he claimed he belonged to a gang before he was in and working. This interview gave us more information about Suge's relationship with other inmates. Suge's health fears is he's keeping a low profile. Some days he doesn't even leave us. Some people say that they have had enough. According to the guy who interviewed behind bars, Suge was talking about Shield that way. So I brought up the point that to show that these are on the streets, allocating a tough man to the sauna, and that you are in the pit with your homies that you're seeing, and that you have to pull out the knife and get your guy. His game changed. You can see who I was talking to. I'll show you. I'll illustrate what we discussed about me. Sure, hey man. What the man says is true. Suge appears to be under PC protective custody. This type of prison is where inmates will be placed in a separate unit for their safety. It could be for several months. It could be for several reasons. The inmate may be at risk, or another inmate or staff member might have high profile status, making them a target. Suge Knight, a former record label executive associated with gangs who had risen to the prestigious level, was placed in protective custody because he threatened himself and other prisoners or staff. In prison, he was considered to be a high-risk inmate. The protective custody ensured that he was kept away from the rest of the population under constant supervision to reduce the possibility of harm. That's not it. She will likely be the only person who switches sides or drops the flag entirely once you get it. Mad Dog, a popular member of the Rolling 60 Crips who is older, did precisely the same thing. Do you remember Mad Dog? No, I saw him in the room, but I'm not familiar with him anymore. He was a Crip, but he entered the room at first. I exposed him because I knew him. It was because of this that I immediately recognized him. Oh, this is a Mad Dog from 60 Crips. They decided he needed it. The prisoner, Mad Dog, who conducted the interview. In the same interview, he claimed a few minutes later that Suge had decided to stop mixing with the Prius because of his fear. What did he think Suge was scared of? You think it could happen to him if he wronged the people that met up with him? So you feel that he's afraid to leave the cell. He didn't come with us, as you heard. He was able to with his family, but still he feared you wouldn't want anything to do with anyone from the gang. If you think about the story, you'll see it's not better than they think. What could happen in prison? In a flash, you could run into someone who can cause severe issues for you. Anyone can be touched inside. There are no rules. Suge's situation is well understood by many online. Sugar is where all bad things happen, to be honest. As an introvert, I call it karma. I completely understand this because I would also prefer to be alone in my prison cell if I were in jail. You could write all day about what Suge has done to people. He was a real-life Debo when he was at his peak. Some believe that Sugar has just gotten older and is no longer interested in claiming sides. Doug is getting older, and he wants to make it through this point. Suge Knight's life behind bars was marked by many challenges and obstacles, from health issues to legal battles and lawsuits. Despite his circumstances, Knight remains hopeful about his future. His family, friends, and loved ones are eligible for parole in 2037. Knight has a lot of work to do, but his determination and resilience suggests that he'll continue to fight for freedom and a better future. Some people believe that Knight might even make it out alive. What do you think about this situation? Suge Knight is in, of course. He'll ever make it out alive or not? Please let us know by leaving a comment below. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the very end. As always, keep it Rizzo.